Hi, and welcome to the news headlines at this hour. The Israeli military struck Hamas militant site in the Gaza Strip early on Wednesday in response to rocket fire towards Israel the previous night that coincided with the signing of normalization agreements between Israel and two Arab countries at the White House. The barrage against Israel began on Tuesday night just as the ceremony in Washington was getting underway to formalize the new agreements with the UAE and Bahrain. Two Israelis were lightly wounded. The rocket fire continued overnight with sirens sounding across southern Israel. The military said 5 projectiles landed in open areas with the rest intercepted by Israel's rocket defense system. In response, the military said it struck about 10 sites belonging to Gaza's militant Hamas rulers, including a weapon and explosive manufacturing factory, underground infrastructure, and a military training compound. A newly strengthened Hurricane Sally plummeted the Florida Panhandle and South Alabama with sideways rain, beach-covering storm surges, strong winds and power outages early on Wednesday, moving towards shore at an agonizingly slow pace that promised a drawn-out drenching and possible record floods. Some 150,000 homes and businesses had lost electricity by early Wednesday. A curfew was called in the coastal Alabama city of Gulf Shores due to life-threatening conditions. In the Panhandle's Escambia County, Chief Sheriff's Deputy Chip Simmons vowed to keep deputies out with residents as long as physically possible. The county includes Pensacola, one of the largest cities in the Gulf Coast. The new president of the UN General Assembly warned on Tuesday that unilateralism will only strengthen the COVID-19 pandemic and called for a new commitment to global cooperation, including on the fair and equitable distribution of vaccines. Turkish diplomat and politician Volkan Bozkır announced that the General Assembly will hold a high-level special session on the COVID-19 pandemic in early November, though diplomats said the date may slip. He told a press conference later it would have been better to hold the meeting at an earlier time in the pandemic, suggesting June. Bozkır took over the reins of the 193-member worldly body after taking the oath of office and being handed the large gavel signifying the office from outgoing General Assembly President Tijani Mohammad Bande, who presided over a unique year-old session that he said was defined by a pandemic. It included virtual meetings and new voting procedures. A more developing news overseas is Japan's parliament elected Yoshihide Suga as Prime Minister on Wednesday, replacing long-serving leader Shinzo Abe with his right-hand man. Suga has been chosen as a leader of the ruling party on Monday, virtually assuring he would succeed Abe, who resigned earlier in the day because of ill health. Suga, who was chief cabinet secretary in Abe's government, is to launch his own cabinet later on Wednesday. Suga has stressed his background as a farmer's son and a self-made politician in promising to serve the interests of ordinary people and rural communities. Pound traders betting the UK and European Union are bluffing in their latest Brexit dispute are set for a windfall if history repeats itself. That's because options to position for sterling gains have now become relatively cheap, as most investors are rushing the way to hedge against a slump in case Britain fails to agree a trade deal with the bloc this year. Those betting on a 5% pound advance over the next 6 months pay 30% less than for an equivalent wager on a drop, according to Bloomberg calculations on option pricing. Contrarian trades that bank on the UK and EU ironing out the latest disputes made up a third of the total in the options market in the past week. Venezuelan security forces and allied groups have committed systematic human rights violations, including killings and torture amounting to crime against humanity, UN investigators said on Wednesday. Reasonable grounds existed to believe that President Nicolas Maduro and his interior and defense ministers ordered or contributed to the crimes documented in the report in order to silence opposition, they said. Most unlawful executions by state agents have not been prosecuted in Venezuela, where the rule of law and democratic institutions have broken down, they added. The UN fact-finding mission said other national jurisdictions and International Criminal Court, which opened a preliminary examination into Venezuela in 2018, should consider prosecutions. It would share its database containing the names of officers identified by victims. Britain could cede control over fishing waters around the Channel Islands in an attempt to resolve a key dispute in Brexit negotiations with the European Union, it has been claimed. UK diplomats have floated the possibility of reinstating different fishing rights around the Channel Islands to the rest of UK, allowing more access to French vessels, two sources told. The claims have been dismissed by government sources, one of which told The Telegraph that there is no departure from a fundamental position that we will have control of our waters around there. This is Jyoti reporting for Our Voice.